So Trump is gone now, you guys, and he's not the president anymore. He's out of power. And it really is, if we just stop and take a breath for a second and think about it, what a long, strange trip it's been, right? The longest 4 years of most of our lives. I think Trump was such a shock to the system that that a lot of people, who maybe didn't follow politics before, all of a sudden, did. I saw it in my own friends and family, people who never, or, they'd always say the same things. Oh, I don't vote, it doesn't matter. Or, I don't really like politics. They didn't like discussing it. Either I would see them discussing it on social media in person, or they would just be asking me more questions than I was used to. Because everybody knew I worked at a newspaper that, I followed things and I was always paying attention. So I'd have more people want to ask me, like, what about what Trump did this time? And what about this? Bam Soda says, still a bit weird. You still see trumpets flying flags around, so it's hard to take a breather. Well, yeah, so they're still trying to act like, but it's over now. I mean, they had their big, literally, traitorous temper tantrum on January 6th. But, we saw that the attacks that were planned at state capitals kind of petered out because of the National Guard, the National Guard presence. And I think after January 6th, I think a lot of people were just kind of over it because, one thing we've seen with a lot of these insurrectionists is that their own communities and in some cases their own families are turning against them, that they are, the people are in their own neighborhoods, in their own communities, and even in their own families know they were there. And then they call the FBI on them because, let's just take a minute to appreciate how insanely divisive Trump was to just regular Americans. Because not only did people like you and me, who very clearly knew that we were not for Trump, that we were definitely not about the whole Trump thing, there were, millions less, of course, but there were millions of Americans who saw Trump and got activated in the opposite way from us, meaning they were totally for Trump and excited about and by him, right? And so I mean, how many? I mean, I'm sure you all know people or have stories of friends, family who are no longer on speaking terms, had blow-ups at each other, and I mean, I've seen people on my feed who their parents have blocked them because they didn't support Trump, and just all kinds of vitriolic hatefulness, and it all starts with Trump. I really do believe that he ran in a way, as a journalist, I was especially sensitive to it when he targeted journalists. I started raising alarm bells and being, hey, this is not normal. This is actually really concerning. And, was just attacked for even bringing that up or for criticizing, the whole situation. But that divisiveness really kind of funneled down to everybody, and that to me is one of the more insidious things of the Trump era, is how the division he wrought between each other, but just among Americans, right? And it's funny how the divide and the division, and America's so divided. Let me expel something for you. The country's always been divided, guys. It's always been, from the beginning, from the founding. The 3/5 compromise representation, partial representation in the House for the slave states was to compromise with slaveholders, right? And northern, the northern non-slave owning, more liberal North. There was, the Civil War. We had a civil war over the later, that issue specifically, slave ownership. And the election in 2000 came down to a single vote on the Supreme Court. So we've always been divided. Trump just came and he stirred up the hornet's nest, basically. But what that has done to the country's, togetherness is really something else. It's riled up extremism. It's riled up domestic terrorism. It's mainstreamed white supremacy in a way and white nationalism in a way where, right now Republicans are acting like Joe Biden is divisive because he's not racist, because he's not doing the racist things they've come to expect from leadership. So, but then also just the what do you call it? Hold on, I have some comments here. Let's cut to the comments really quick. Andrew K says populism is a hell of a drug. Yeah, well, right-wing populism smacks of fascism. It just does. And left-wing populism is originally a left-wing idea, and co-opting it on the right. That's why the debate of can we break bread with Tucker Carlson if he's anti-war. These people aren't your friends. Right-wing populists, you might be a left-wing populist. They're not going to be your friend. Jay Coleman says, when Obama won, the Army showed me images of soldiers stepping on prayer rugs. Jesus. Wow. Tell us more about that. The shooting doesn't stop overseas. This is Jay Coleman, who fought in Iraq. He's a veteran. Foreign policy is the same. Let's see. Soldiers lighted up overseas to let them know. Jeez, man. Yeah, and and it's crazy. We saw in the insurrection a bunch of either currently serving or retired military and police officers. So we do have that's always been an institution. Notice how the one federal institution that the Republican Party will love to fund and fund for forever is the military, because they know it's inherently right wing. But so we also have to take into account with the Trump era the rampant corruption and the insanity. I mean, yes, there was all the vitriol and the hatred and the constant attacks and warlike just aspect that Trump had against, he treated the opposition party like a domestic enemy, like a foreign threat, right? And that's why he didn't want to give coronavirus relief money to Democrat states and Democrat cities, right? There's just all this that stance, of course, but then you have to add on top of that was also most of the time hiding the blatant corruption of the Trump administration. I mean, we're talking about and I know a lot of people don't like to bring up, especially on the left, the Russia investigation. But, I mean, there was all kinds of corruption in the Russia investigation that was uncovered. Paul Manafort, owed money to, Russian oligarchs. He was buddy-buddy with Konstantin Kilimnik, a Russian intelligence officer. He's now been pardoned by Trump. Roger Stone was calling up Julian Assange to try to get the release of the Podesta emails. Keep this in mind. Within a half an hour of the grab 'em by the pussy tape being reported by Washington Post, within 30 minutes, WikiLeaks dropped the Podesta emails, and Hillary's emails became part of it. So you got to, recognize all of that. There's also the Ukraine call and the impeachment for that, but also just the number of department secretaries that had to resign in shame. The EPA guy was Tom Pierce. What's his name? The kooky guy out of Texas who lost the primary for his racism. He was flying his wife around on jets. Oh yeah, Andrew K brings up the Georgia call. Yeah, that's just most recent. I was trying to give a little continuity and build up. Yeah, the Georgia call. I mean, in any normal world, in any regular world, the Georgia call would be, grounds for impeachment and forever shame. But we were so fatigued by Trump. There was such scandal fatigue and just we were numb to it all, that the Georgia call just seemed like just another thing he did, right? Let's see. I got some more comments. I want to read your guys' comments. Let's see. Do you watch Bo of the Fifth Column? He did a great job about Trump's accomplishments. I do like Bo of the Fifth Column. I don't watch him enough. Cody Johnston of some more news did like a retrospective, and he really breaks a lot of this stuff down in a very funny way. He's a funny guy. He's like drinking straight from like a wine bottle or a liquor bottle while he does it. Brian Becker said this today on iMix that I like with Jared Ball. Georgia Call. I watched Bio the fifth column. Yeah, he's good. So yes, Cody is great too. But so yeah, so we have the Georgia Call is crazy. But then, and then it all caps off with this insurrection. So Trump just has to, he has to have some last thing to do. And because of that, attempted insurrection, treasonous attack on the country. Well, let me just put a cork on that. So, what's that old saying? Like they used to say it about Kurt Cobain, like some stars, they burn brightest, but they fizzle out quickly, right? And that's the Trump presidency, right? Trump was so corrupt, so bombastic, so vitriolic, and his path of destruction is writ large across the country. Hate crimes, rose exponentially under Trump. People yelled at and intimidated, and I mean, I can't tell you how many stories you can find across the United States where if you just go check like local TV stations of, a basketball team, high school basketball team with kids on it, people of color who, they're beating this team of mostly white students from the more rural area school, and everybody just starts chanting Trump at them, right? Trump, Trump, Trump. And then eventually slurs get thrown and fights and all that stuff. So, there's that path of destruction. There's also the massive death that we've seen under Trump through the complete neglect, and deregulation and just dismantling of the agencies that were tasked with dealing with something like a pandemic and the coronavirus. And just, I saw a podcast. Everybody go like and subscribe. This is Revolution podcast on YouTube. Jason Miles is the host of that. His last full show, they had a guy on there who's talking about eugenics and basically made the point that, the whole coronavirus thing, once in April, when the first demographic numbers came out about who was represented the most in the fatality rates of COVID, it was people of color, Black Americans, Latino Americans, and, people, essential workers, who are in the income bracket of, the working class and the service industry. That's when the Trump administration and Republicans started forcing reopening more than anything, because, reopen the country because, they saw who it was killing. So this was a type of a passive eugenics where by not acting, you're allowing eugenics. Jay Coleman, COVID is U.S. eugenics based on our class society. Yeah, man, and I know a right winger I'm friendly with, and we talk. I always try to, hear what they have to say. And this one guy, I remember, he was talking about how this has gone on too long. People are tired of it, and we need herd immunity. And I said, but that's only with a vaccine, And he's like, well, enough people are going to get it anyway. They just need to get it. And I said, so let me get this straight. We need to enact basically a nationwide eugenics program so you can go back to Buffalo Wild Wings. And he kind of like laughed because he knew what I was saying was true, and that would be heinous to say what he said. But he went, yeah, basically. So there you go. So that's that. Trump has been massively destructive to the country, but I also think his incompetence, the hatefulness, so many different aspects of it, have made clear, to a lot of people that, this is why he's not like Nixon, who won 2 terms. This is why he's not like Reagan, who won 2 terms. Is, he just he didn't have the style or the ability to be anything other than a train wreck. My metaphor, I'll end this segment with this. My metaphor for the Trump administration was this, and continues to be this. To me, it's the most apt metaphor. Okay, so you have a train that's barreling down the rails, right? Of a train tracks. Now, it's a oil train. It carries oil, okay? But because of deregulation and everything, they don't ever check the wheels or even the tracks. They don't care. It costs less to just pay fines than it does to keep things up. This is a libertarian, deregulated economy like Trump would want, right? So you have this oil train. It's barreling down the tracks, and it's coming up on a what do you say? A wastewater treatment facility. This is where sewage is cleaned and converted into wastewater, right? So you have this oil train coming down the tracks with wastewater, a treatment facility, a sewage plant, and it hops the tracks because of the aforementioned shittiness of the rails. And this oil train goes barreling into the wastewater treatment plant and explodes, creates this massive explosion of fiery, oily shit, right? Shit explosion. But the other thing that I forgot to mention was there's a gas line underneath the wastewater treatment plant because of poor urban planning, because we live in this libertarian dystopia, right? And so it combines with a massive gas explosion. So now you have a giant geyser of flaming, oily shit geyser on fire. And that basically has been the Trump administration from beginning to end. So I'm going to end that section. Thank you. I love you. You're very special people. Goodbye. What did he say in his closing speech? Have a nice life. That was the other thing he said. Yeah, that's my wife chiming in. No, he didn't. Yeah, I should probably let's just hear a little bit of Trump's last speech as president. It was something. Let's check this out really quick. Okay, that's a stupid ad. But I hope you guys liked my metaphor. I hope you guys liked my performance there. But let's just hear, because he did at the end of his speech say, "Have a nice life." So let's see. And I don't want to get dinged from the copyright. I've already been dinged for they play YMCA again, at the end.
I want to I want to thank our Vice President, Mike Pence, and Karen.
Look how tired he looks.
Congress, because we really worked well with Congress, at least certain elements of Congress.
Certain elements
of Congress. But we really did. We've gotten so much done that nobody thought would be possible. But I do want to thank Congress. And I want to thank all of the great people of Washington, D.C., all of the people that we worked with to put this miracle together. So, have a good life.
Have a good life.
See you soon.
We'll see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a good life. Yeah, well, tell that to the, almost 500,000 people who are dead now, and the thousands more who are going to die because of his incompetence. And he just didn't care. Didn't care to lead. Didn't care to do the best. He, even try. It's not like, I don't think Trump could ever do his best at being the president. He could only just do what he wanted to as president.